Hi, everybody. I think we're live. Definitely let us know if you're seeing and hearing us so we know it's working. Oh, and here's Christy. Woohoo.
Oh, just
This guy here. Hello,
Hi.
hello.
Sorry I'm late.
It's okay.
Oh, goodness.
Hi, everybody. We are so excited to talk about this one because it was a wild ride. This book was crazy, even more so than the other two, in my opinion.
Yes.
Yes.
But welcome. If you are chatting with us, definitely let us know if you're here live. And then if you're watching this on a replay, I would love for you to leave a comment and let me know that you're watching it on replay, and let me know what you thought of the book and some of your thoughts as well in the comments. All right, so we've got David's here. Hey, David, and Christina. And Kaylee, woohoo! Kaylee did another blog post for this, by the way.
Yay.
And it was great. It was very entertaining to read. Because Kaylee had some strong opinions about this one. So I was really loving reading her blog. It was fun. And then Carrie, hey Carrie. Yes, it definitely had a different feel from the others.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, so my lovely co-host, unfortunately, Summer could not join us today. She had some other family things going on today. So she said she might pop in the comments and say hi. But I will go ahead and have everybody introduce themselves. And then I would like to know, while you're introducing yourself too, and in the comments, you can let us know your answer to this question as well. But what is your personal ranking for the 3 books in the trilogy now that you have read all 3? I would love to know kind of how each one sits for you, because I know we had some really polarizing different opinions. I saw some people in the Discord were saying this was their favorite one, and some were saying it was their least favorite one. I feel like no one was really in the middle, but I would love to know if you are in the middle too. But Amanda, we can start with you.
Okay. I know based off ratings, if we went based off my ratings, it would be 2, 1, 3. But I think thinking back on it, I would go 1, 2, 3. 1 as number 1, and then 3 as the last, and 2 in the middle. I did like 2, but not as much as 1, I don't think.
I would agree with you. I think they're 1, 2, 3 for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about you, Christy?
2, 1, 3.
Yeah.
2, 1,
Although,
3.
yeah, I think 2, 1, 3. Yeah. I'm really curious about people who thought 3 was the best. I thought this one was really interesting because it was like so different. Like, I enjoyed the Arthurian-ness of it. I thought that was very interesting, but it was like such a curveball because the other ones were like Edenic retellings, and this one was like Arthurian and Greek.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Where did that come from?
Well, it looks like Carrie likes this one the best. So we have somebody who has this one as number 1.
Okay.
And then 2 Out of the Silent Planet, and then 3 Paralandra. Okay.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. That's mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, no, it's been really interesting. Everybody kind of I feel like either one side or the other with this 3rd book. It was either your favorite or your least favorite. Yeah, Agatha Christie adventure. I got that vibe a little bit, especially towards the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Agatha Christie.
Mystery
That's
element.
so interesting.
Yeah. It kind of has like a crime novel feel at the beginning. Maybe Miss Hardcastle gave me that vibe. Like,
okay, yeah.
So.
Yeah. I would agree though, like the first 2 are definitely sci-fi. And this one I felt was more fantasy. And it's probably just because we're on Earth and not a different planet. But
Hey Summer, there's Summer.
Hi, Summer.
Yay. So definitely subscribe to Christy and Amanda. Their info is down below in the description. I feel like most of you guys know them already, but in case you don't and you're watching this, definitely go check out their channels. They're amazing. Christy is Christy Lewis Dostoevsky in Space. She has a lot of classics on her channel and lots of live stream discussions. So if you enjoy these, you'll love Christy's channel. And Amanda is taking a little YouTube break, but she's on Instagram and very active there. So I have her Instagram down below as well as her YouTube.
Oh yeah, we forgot to introduce ourselves.
Oh, it's okay.
Sorry.
I did it for you.
Thank you, Victoria.
Yeah, no, genre is hard. I agree, Carrie. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. So thank you for letting me know your ranking. It was really interesting to see how everybody feels about them.
Yeah, like the talk about Agatha Christie is a really interesting way to think about it. Maybe because I listened to it on audiobook, I didn't even think of that, but that actually makes sense. Like, yeah, probably if I was reading it, I would have been like, yes, mind-blowingly yes, for sure.
There's a lot of mystery, especially in the beginning of building upon things that, like, as a reader, we didn't have information about. So I could definitely feel the mystery element.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Christy, you had brought this up too, that you wanted to talk about this one. But the full title of the novel is actually That Hideous Strength, a fairy tale for grown-ups, which is interesting to me because I don't know if I got fairy tale vibes from this book, but do you think, I don't know, do you guys think that the story had fairy tale qualities, or why would C.S. Lewis call it a fairy tale?
So trying to come at, like, I feel like that set me up in all the wrong ways. Like in my head, like I was really expecting, I guess, different things. But in the end, eventually we did get to the kind of magical things I was expecting. It just took a lot longer than I guess we expected. Yeah. Like maybe the final third or quarter, we got to the kind of fairy tale-esque things that I was expecting. But yes, in the sense that I think C.S. Lewis thinks of fairy tales, hi Noah, we did end up there. Like in the sense that Tolkien thinks about it, I think. It's kind of a fairy tale romance in the terms that they think of as a romance. Old school meaning of the word romance. I think they would classify them as very similarly, like with the animals dancing together in the end, you know, all the marriages, all the happy endings kind of colliding at the end. So in that sense, yes. Yeah,
it's funny you brought up the animals, because once the bears were introduced and we were like at St. Anne's and there was like animals and stuff hanging out with them, I was like, oh yeah, this is C.S. Lewis. Yeah. That's very characteristic of him to throw that in there too.
Yeah.
I love the bear.
Yeah. Amanda, do you have any thoughts on that?
I felt more of the fairy tale with the St. Anne's group than I did with the NICE group. And I think it is because of just the mix of characters within that, and especially with the animals as characters and that. But yeah, I don't know if I feel like it's a modern fairy tale though. Like I would have to reread it again to be able to pull out all the pieces that it really feels like that.
It is like in the sense that like fairy tales are kind of like a beware of this, you know, it is because it's like a beware of the scientific materialism, lest you end up like, you know, in a gigantic flood or, you know, like a gigantic disaster that destroys your town, you know.
Yeah.
It does like those guys.
Yeah, it does
kind by of a tiger.
Right. It kind of has that feeling like a fairy tale is telling you some like moral thing that you're supposed to get out of it at the end.
Yeah.
Some lesson learned.
Yeah, it does have that going for it.
Yeah.
As far as a modern fairy tale.
Yeah.
And then Summer's saying maybe because of the Greek mythology. Yeah, and I would say the Arthurian mythology as well with Merlin. like Merlin is a fairy tale character basically. So yeah, the infusing of that all is maybe what he was going for too.
Yeah.
All right. You guys hear that? Feedback?
There was some feedback.
Is it gone?
I think it's gone now.
Okay. Sorry about that. So speaking of genre, this book is super hard to classify. I think we have kind of established that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of blending of a lot of different things. And it's very hard to pinpoint what is this novel. But it was actually, I have some discussion about George Orwell because George Orwell reviewed this book and he had some thoughts on it as well. So we'll talk about that in a bit. But I think that a lot of people read this as a dystopian novel as well because of the NICE and their whole role in the story. Do you agree or disagree? Or what makes a dystopian a dystopian? Does this book have those elements of a dystopian?
You want to tackle that, Amanda?
I did not feel at all like this was a dystopian. Like when I think of dystopian, I think there has been some big event in the world that has completely changed society and how we live. And I think probably because we saw such small groups of the population, we were mostly following the St. Anne's crowd and the what was that one that started with the B? Anyway, the NICE group. It didn't, like, it was very concentrated between those two groups. So we didn't really see, like, other than what was happening to the land towards the end, it didn't feel like the world was necessarily, like, apart and, like, rebuilding in this new normal. So, like, when I think of dystopian, obviously I think of, like, the Hunger Games or Divergent or 1984, and that's, like, a completely restructured sort of world. And so I didn't feel any, like, dystopian elements in this until we got towards the end when everyone was kind of fleeing the town where NICE was trying to take over.
Okay, that's interesting because I felt more of dystopian elements at the beginning with the NICE, and then I think what makes this book not a dystopian anymore is the ending, because there's a bit of more divine intervention, and you don't usually see that in dystopians. Dystopian is more it's gritty and real life centered, like the here and now. And with divine intervention, I think that makes it something, I don't know, I think that puts it in a different category personally. But the first half of the book felt very 1984 to me.
I agree. Like, as far as this being a sci-fi novel, I think it's very sociological because it's not like we're on another planet. So if this at all is classified as sci-fi, I think that dystopia is probably the best classification because it's completely sociological. I think the society was restructured in a dystopian way. It was like not good. And like, especially when Merlin was looking at it, and it was being explained to Merlin, I think that was C.S. Lewis's chance to kind of look at the world and kind of review it, and see like, oh yeah, even like at every level of authority, it's just bad all the way through. And even if we were just from the beginning, we're just looking at it like at England, essentially, all the levels of England are bad. But then we're looking at it, when we're looking at it from Merlin's point of view, it's like, oh no, the whole world is just bad morally now, if we're looking at it from Merlin's point of view. So I think it is a dystopian novel, like looking at the whole world ultimately. And then the ending is kind of all the gods coming down and trying to make things better. Right. The divine intervention thing that Orwell talks about. Mm-hmm. So I definitely thought that it was.
we have quite a few people here saying pre-dystopian. So
Mhm.
kind of a cautionary tale, like what if this happened, but they don't win in the end. But if they did win in the end, then it would be a dystopian world. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they had won, the follow-up would have been dystopian.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I think I would agree with that. Cool. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. Actually, I'm going to change my order of my questions since we're kind of on that topic. I wanted to read you guys the like a quote from George Orwell's review because I found it really interesting. Carla from Raised to Walk actually linked the review in our Discord of George Orwell reviewing That Hideous Strength. So if you want to check that out, you can read the review. Actually, if I will maybe link it here later too. I'll put it in the description as well. But thank you, Carla, for pointing that out because I did not know that, and that was really interesting. But I just wanted to read you a quote and see if you guys agree or disagree with his criticisms. So basically, when he reviewed That Hideous Strength, in his opinion, Lewis should have left out the supernatural elements completely, and to Orwell, that would have made a better story. And so the quote I wanted to share with you guys is, Lewis is entitled to his beliefs, but they weaken his story, not only because they offend the average reader's sense of probability, but because in effect they decide the issue in advance. When one is told that God and the devil are in conflict, one always knows which side is going to win. The whole drama of the struggle against evil lies in the fact that one does not have supernatural aid. But Orwell did say he still thought the book was worth reading. So he kind of criticizes the supernatural elements, but then he's like, but yeah, you can read it. It's still worth it. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Do you agree or disagree? Did the supernatural elements detract from the story, or is it expected from C.S. Lewis?
I don't necessarily think it's expected from C.S. Lewis. I think because this fits in with the trilogy and we were already introduced to those supernatural elements before, it makes sense that they would be present in the wrapping up of this conflict. Mm-hmm. So I think it fits for this story in this trilogy, but maybe if it were a standalone, I might agree a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But then knowing C.S. Lewis, I would say like it's kind of obvious that he's gonna throw it in there, right?
Mm-hmm. You're right. The rest of the trilogy had this like battle going on too between the powers of good and evil and the supernatural forces. So it does only make sense that they are, accumulating in this book as well. That's true. And I don't know, Summer, that's a good question. If Orwell didn't read the other two books, then he might not have that perspective. I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
If anybody knows, let me know. What do you think, Christy?
Yeah, I think you're totally right, Amanda. Like, if you read the rest of it, it's like, I mean, your expectations are set up, and I think he delivers, like, totally. Yeah. I think it feels super apocalyptic. I think it feels like, Egyptian plagues, and like he has the Greek gods coming down. Like, he goes all out. There's all kinds of mythology stuff happening. He's got Merlin. Like, I mean, it's like everything. He throws it all in as a scholar who loves mythology, and I think it's great. I think that's the best part of the book. It almost redeemed the book for me. So I loved the ending. I can see how divine intervention can detract from a book. I've seen that happen, but I mean, it's his opinion that there's no supernatural help, in a case like this. And, obviously C.S. Lewis disagrees, and I think he pulled it off really well. So,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we always knew it was going to come to a head on Earth because of all of the allusions to us having a corrupt Oyarsa. So yeah,
Yeah.
just made sense.
You kind of know that the nice is gonna, they have it coming to them, you know?
Yeah.
So you're kind of looking forward to it.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, just because it's a predictable ending doesn't mean you don't get good stuff out of the journey along the way.
Yeah. It's like what Brandon Sanderson always says. Just because you know it's coming doesn't mean you're not looking forward to it and it can't deliver in a big way.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can be prolonged for a long time and
Yeah.
and it can be a very good thing when you finally get it.
Yeah.
Hmm. Good points, guys. Yeah, I don't know. I felt like with the adding of all the mythology, I felt like it was too much personally for me. I was like, it was too much for my brain to like try to make all the connections that C.S. Lewis was making. So I kind of think it was overloaded with his mythological references. I wish it was a little more streamlined.
Yeah.
But yeah, it I think with the context of the other two books, having kind of a Deus ex machina would make sense because we've always had the spiritual involved in the plot before. So that is a really good point. I hadn't really considered that.
That's a good point by, was it Carrie? You said her name was Carrie Louise Reads? That's a really good point. I didn't know that it would work. I was not sure if it would work out well for Mark. I really was like, oh, is he going to get his body chopped off from his head and become like a head person?
Another head.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Mark, so let's talk about our protagonists a little bit. So surprisingly, Ransom is a side character in this book and kind of has a little role, but he's not the focus at all. What did you guys think of Jane and Mark as characters and as protagonists?
Go for it, Amanda.
Are you sure you don't want to go first?
Oh, I mean, I can, you know, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. They were a little, I didn't think they were that exciting. I thought Mark's journey was a little more exciting. I thought the most affecting moment was when you learn that, you know, from Merlin that they could have had this baby that was like the big deal that's being set up for generations and generations.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. It was like, oh no, facepalm. But I was like, when Mark like finally solidified in his mind that he doesn't want to just be in the in crowd just because they're the in crowd, I was like, yes,
Yeah.
dude. But other than that, it was kind of like, I don't really care. It was kind of like Ransom for the other books. It was like, he's okay, whatever. He's not the draw.
I think Jane was kind of a little boring. I didn't feel like she had these crazy dreams, and I see why she was pivotal to the good guys side of the story, but she didn't go through as much character development to me as Mark did. Like he went through it all, like wanting to fit in, doing everything he could to fit in and like get this good position. And you could see his internal struggle with that along the way, and then be sucked back in by the things that people were saying to him. And then at the end was like, oh wow, I've been on the wrong side this whole time. Like, let's go back and change this. Yeah.
I think Jane's arc, I think there was a missed opportunity to make her a better character. And yeah, I did feel like the focus was on Mark. That is a criticism I have. I don't feel like he did great by the women characters in this book. But
yeah,
you know, it is what it is. But yeah, I think I might have liked Mark's journey more because I think it was interesting to see his like slippery slope, and he kind of becomes involved without realizing he's becoming more and more involved in like accepting the NICE mentality and their more morals or lack thereof morals. And I thought it was really interesting to see his descent into that, but you see like the baby steps that it took as he descends morally, and how he like gradually accepts like, well, I'll just do this, and then I wrote this article and I'm proud of these articles, when he was like writing for the propaganda. And you see how he just gradually accepts what he's doing, and he doesn't realize the path he's going down until a certain point. So I thought Mark's was more developed, and I thought Jane's was started out more interesting, and I just didn't feel like she got a good development in the end.
Jane's was very passive, and Mark's was more like actually developing, like active developing, figuring things out, you know.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder too if like part of it is because like a good person can still get off on the wrong path, but I think it's harder maybe for a person who's on the wrong path to get on the good path. And so maybe it's showing more of that, like the struggle that it takes to kind of turn that around and decide to do good.
Yeah.
Because Mark could have gone either way. He was a character who was he didn't have a very strong will. He was very middle of the road, and he really could have gone either way.
Yeah, very true. That's true. He could have lent his help in either direction. It was interesting to see where we go. What was he gonna do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, he was a cautionary tale. There's our fairy tale coming into play too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, Christy, you had some criticisms earlier for the earlier books of character development and just not connecting with them. I felt like we took better steps towards like more interesting character development in this one, but for me, still there was something to be desired. I don't know if you felt that too.
Yeah, I agree. I still was not like a, yay, the characters were my draw. Like, not really.
Yeah.
Like, I was still more interested in like the mythology, pretty much. That's why I loved the explosion at the ending. I was like, oh, I want to go back and like reread the ending. Like, I kind of want to like untangle all the ending. Yeah. But yeah.
Oh man, the ending. Well, this ending was grisly too, with the animals and attacking everybody. I was like, oh my god, this book was very violent.
Yeah,
more violent than I expected.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so we've talked about our protagonists a bit. Let's talk about our antagonists. So I would love to know your thoughts on the NICE and what they represent, and then how does St. Anne's kind of contrast? I'm so sorry. My phone is ringing. How does St. Anne's contrast to the NICE? Did you like how that was done? Was it effective? I found the characters, the villains in the NICE, I found them to be really interesting because they all kind of had their own, like they were all kind of a stereotype for, I feel like, an element of evil. And so I found the individual villains more interesting than I found like St. Anne's like as a whole. They weren't as interesting to me, but the villains individually were really interesting. What do you think, Christy?
Yeah, I don't know. The individuals mostly, again, I just didn't find any of the individuals particularly interesting. But I did think that overall the kind of clash of philosophies and all of that was interesting, carrying over from the other books. So I think Summer clued us into this. Nice, well, this will be more for a later question, but Nice was the like literal embodiment of scientific materialism, which has no real moral values and only pretty much wants to progress the human race into like just the heads, you know, just the intelligence of the what are they called? the Eldils of Earth to inhabit, so that they can just run things. And it's headed by the same spiritual powers that were guiding Dr. Weston in the earlier books. So they're continuing on. It's the same antagonists, really, from the other books.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll pretty much run down anybody else to, get their goal. So it's the end justifies the means. Whereas St. Anne's is guided by the Oyarsa, who has guided Ransom since he left the Earth. So same antagonists, same protagonists, ultimately, and they kind of hold on to their morality. So yeah, I think that's pretty much like the spirits kind of animating them, and that's mostly what interested me. So I was really glad that Summer kind of talked about the abolition of man in our last stream and like clued us in about that.
Yeah, I don't. Did anybody else read Abolition of Man 2 this month? I read it before I started That Hideous Strength, and so that definitely helped me to grasp what the ultimate theme of That Hideous Strength was going to be.
Yeah,
but it's really short. Abolition of Man is really short. If you haven't read it, I read it in like a morning, so it's fairly short. It's dense. I mean, it's dense. It's still dense philosophy and material, but it's a short book.
Yeah, I listened to the audiobook in bed, and that was just not a good idea. I definitely needed to see the physical words. So I didn't get a lot out of it when I listened to it, but I think I will when I go back and reread it.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that you have to like understand every sentence as like a building block before you go on to the next one. At least for me, it was like, and if you miss one, like you miss the whole thread of like the whole book.
Right,
That's how it was for me. And I've read it twice and it's still like that. But I tend to be really detail oriented like that. So maybe it's not like that for everybody.
Christina's saying she had a hard time, understanding the director and the subdirector. Yeah, they had some scenes together when they were kind of discussing their mad scientist kind of plans, right? And they're colluding. I see the NIC as representing power without morality, and that is essentially what they are. And they're men who are attracted to power despite goodness, right? And so then, to me, St. Anne's was the opposite, and they are the champions for goodness and doing the right thing. Whereas the NICE is all about power and control, and also like control of nature. Controlling nature was a big theme, and man having ultimate control of nature and the universe being a bad thing, obviously.
Yeah. You can definitely tell with their like planned goal at the start to destroy the whole like forest and gardens and stuff that people already inhabit.
I don't think C.S. Lewis had a very high opinion of man's ability to handle power.
No.
3 times. Yeah, that's kind of what it's like.
Agree. Oh, I haven't seen The Matrix in so long. Yeah, no, I can see that. Though. That's funny. So speaking of which, descriptions. How does Lewis use weather and nature descriptions to contribute to the plot atmosphere? Because nature definitely plays a big role in just each scene, I would say. And we have a whole chapter on the fog, right? So the fog almost as a character as well. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I thought it was cool to kind of give the nature and the atmosphere like its own sort of character and personality and just presence and stuff. It's always really interesting with that.
Oh yeah, and Sorry. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask. I was just gonna respond to that. Are you talking about the director and sub-director, Christina? Because that's something that came up in Mere Christianity, that God actually loves matter. Like, he created matter. And like the body of Christ is actually the physical manifestation of Christ. Like, that's the point. God loves matter. So yeah, people mistake that sometimes. He likes us. That's why he created us.
That's a good point, Chrissy.
Anyways, so the weather. Okay, I'm so listening to it. I don't normally just listen to books if I'm going to be in a live stream. I am so sorry. I normally actually read them, but this month I don't know. I was just planning for vacation, but anyways, I didn't. The weather, I just like. That's something that I tend to like not notice as much if I'm listening. I was waiting for like the moment when they take off in a coffin for, Pluto or something. So as soon as they did that, I was going to sit down with the book because I love the descriptions of other planets. And that didn't happen. So I never actually sat down with the book. So I didn't notice the weather. I'm so sorry.
I'll be honest, I really didn't notice it either. Okay. Like, I'm sure I did at the point, but I don't remember it now.
Nice as a whole. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. That's interesting. And very, very interesting.
So, well, something just kind of as like a writing technique that I noticed was like St. Anne's. Every time Jane would go to St. Anne's, like the sun is shining. It's in like a more picturesque place. Like just the general descriptions and like it's like a peaceful place and like nature is happy as well. Whereas when we're down in Edgestowe and they're starting to like take over, NICE is starting to take over that area. There's even talk about like the river being dirty. There was like trash in the river and oil and like pollution through the river. And then like the heavy fog over that area. So I just kind of saw how C.S. Lewis was using the nature and the weather to show like how everything, like colludes with the evil, like the nature also colludes with the evil. And it all like kind of works together. And that is like the consequence of what NIC is doing as well. Yeah. And then St. Anne's is like sunny and happy.
Well, he definitely does that at the end. Like, that's very noticeable with the catastrophe and then like the dancing bears, obviously. And like the romantic dreamy night, with all the animals dancing. And it was interesting that like all these animals that are like not like Earth animals show up. Like it's all like nature is coming into harmony with man again. So interesting. And also like obviously he was really good friends with Tolkien, who is obviously, I don't know if Tolkien was anti-industrialist exactly, but obviously that's how the movie directors interpreted him, his writing with the Ents and all that.
Yes, and they
anti-Isengard.
They do destroy the trees in the beginning, right? They're destroying the woods. They're destroying the trees.
Right.
Which is another maybe Tolkien-esque thing.
Yeah. And like digging up the gardens and stuff too, right?
Right. That seems to often in Tolkien and Lewis be kind of evil, goes along with evil as destruction of nature.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of cool that he was talking about Numenor so much and
a little head nod to his friend.
Yeah. Well, and that was before, like that was still when Numenor was in Tolkien's head, right? Like it wasn't after Lord of the Rings was published or anything. So it's kind of cool. Like I wonder how it would have been to read this at the time of publication and not already have an idea of the West in our minds and stuff. Like he just keeps name dropping Numenor and you're like, okay, what is that?
Well, and what's funny is he spells it wrong too. Yeah. He spells it with an I, Numenor. So you can tell like they maybe had talked about it, but I don't know if C.S. Lewis had like seen the word written down, So that was kind of funny.
Maybe it was an earlier draft.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. Hmm. Oh, that's interesting.
What
Noah's
does?
Ark?
What reminds us of Noah's Ark?
Yes, elaborate.
So fun.
So Christine, I do want to know, I want to know what you are thinking with Noah's Ark. But so Christy, I know you've mentioned that the mythology was something that you enjoyed. I'm wondering how it hit everybody else too, with all the allusions. There are lots of biblical allusions and also mythological allusions. There's a lot going on, and I'm just wondering how they worked together for you as a reader, or did they work together? I think I have differing opinions, maybe with Christy, because I felt like it was too much. But I would love to know how that hit everybody else.
I had a lot of fun with it. I think I've sort of expressed my opinions on it earlier, but I don't really know exactly how it all works together. But I think that he believed that all religions that are earlier, that came like earlier, were kind of like echoes of Christianity as like a truer religion. I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm just saying like kind of a very watered down version of what he believed, I think. But he loved that earlier mythology. He felt like they led him to Christ. He felt like Christ was mythology that actually came true. And he loved that. That's how he came to Christianity. It was like the one true myth. And so he loved the early myths. So I think he believed that like these earlier mythologies were kind of like inspired from maybe angels or like things that people had seen, like things that were real. Powers and miracles that maybe people had seen. So I think he was saying like these early gods that people were seeing, were saying, you know, not that they believed in these gods necessarily. There are lots of people who say, you know, Greeks and Romans back in the day, they didn't believe in these mythologies, actually believe in them. However, you know, obviously we see these people coming, these angels coming down in that hideous strength and showing off these powers. And I think that they're supposed to be angels doing these things. So I think that it's all of the mythologies kind of coming down, kind of into one, and being the real power here, showing who's boss, I guess, against nice, kind of destroying evil, because it is a spiritual battle. I know that there's a lot of details here that I'm missing because, again, I listened to it and I want to sit down and reread it. I just didn't have time. I was hoping to like last night and this morning, but again, vacation planning. I just don't have time. I thought it was wonderful though. I'm on vacation brain. I'm already like in South Carolina. I'm on the beach, you know? But yeah, I really loved it. And I loved, you know, the destruction, like I said, it was very biblical. Like it just seemed very biblical with the lion coming and eating all the bad guys. It seemed very biblical. And the saving of many innocent lives with like the animals opening their mouths, leave now, you know, or just the random miracles. Oh, I think I just want to take a vacation, or like the pipes burst. I guess I'll just leave for a while, you know, like all these random things saving innocent people so that a bunch of people just leave.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I just loved all that. It was just a delight. I loved the ending. I was just giggling as they were all leaving, you know.
Yeah. It's something that I like about C.S. Lewis as well, that his endings can be kind of outlandish, and they often involve like the intervention of nature and animals, and it's like I kind of love it, but at the same time it just felt disjointed. I think what threw me off is because we spent most of the book without a magical element, and I think I was just expecting to stay more steeped in reality. And then once the magical elements started coming in, I just think I never grasped onto it. So maybe on a reread, I would know more what to expect. Maybe I would appreciate it more. But yeah. Christina, you're talking about the pairs of animals in the Noah's Ark. Okay, that makes I see that now. I didn't see that before, but no, that makes sense now.
I did not see that either. That's so good. That's so good. I think the chapter titles led me to expect something like Pendragon, you know? I was like, oh, so we're going the Arthurian way eventually. Eventually we'll get there. Thanks for the clue.
Mm-hmm. Jerry, I felt the same way with this one. There were bigger chunks of Paralandra for me that I felt kind of slowed down the story. And actually, I expected that in the Hideous Strength, and then that kind of didn't happen as much as I felt in Paralandra. Yeah, felt a little more hit over the head with theology. Yeah. Sorry, Amanda, I think I wanted to hear your thoughts on the biblical and mythological allusions.
Yeah. So I think this one for me, just for that reason, was easier to digest because I don't have the background of knowing all the biblical references. And like I've read enough where I do understand Greek mythology, but there were a lot that I still didn't like pick up on at the end of reading this. So, but yeah, I do feel like it wasn't as mind-breaking as the first two were with all of the theology that was piled on. So I did appreciate it for that. But at the same time, it still was a bit much. There was just a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
I think it works, but it might have worked a little better if there were a couple things weeded out.
Mm-hmm. I guess I just wanted more of a streamlined. It just felt like everything was like mashed together, you know?
Yeah.
It was a Lewis Lange.
Yeah, it was a Lewis Lange. Exactly. That is a perfect description.
Because you'd be like talking about what's going on here, and then next thing it's like, oh, well, there's this going on, and then this going on. And it's like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
What the plague of the Babel was like, oh my gosh, so cool. When Miss What's her face got the note from what's his face. I'm sorry, the names are all escaping me. And it was gibberish, you know. He was like all annoyed with everybody for speaking gibberish, and then his note was gibberish. It was like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's Babel all over again.
Yeah. That was that was an interesting one.
Yeah. I was like, they're all screwed.
Yeah. Carrie, I have not read that, and I will look that up. Of This and Other Worlds. Is that by Lewis? Yeah.
I think I read that.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's a good one.
It felt like all the Narnia books at once this summer. Yeah. All at the same time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see here. Okay, we're coming up to the ending of our live stream here soon. So I would like to know if you had any favorite or least favorite moments or scenes. I know Kaylee, I don't know if Kaylee's here still, but if you read Kaylee's blog post, she had many least favorite scenes that she points out in the blog, which, yeah, a lot of of the more violent scenes were not my favorite. Yeah, a little bit gruesome sometimes. And I did not like, a least favorite scene is Miss Hardcastle and Jane, their encounter.
She is horrendous.
Yeah, Miss Hardcastle is pretty awful of a character. Did not like her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A favorite scene for me was I was very entertained by Merlin and Ransom's conversation together.
Yeah.
When he was trying to explain to Merlin like why he couldn't do certain things, or like why certain things don't work in the modern world. And there was a lot of humor in that passage.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagining an ancient man meeting a modern world and all the things that wouldn't make sense to him.
Yeah.
That was an entertaining passage.
Yeah.
What about you, Amanda?
So mine's just a really silly one. I liked when Jane was first at St. Anne's and she was getting the bathroom was getting ready for her, and it was after she was rescued from her encounter with Hawthorne, right? That she wakes up there and she's told like, oh, stay in bed, you don't need to push yourself, I'll draw you up a bath. And she's like, no, I can do this myself. And she's warned that there's a giant bear in the bathroom. And I was like, I didn't think it was an actual bear at first.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, like,
I had to reread that a few times.
Yeah. And then she runs in and screams, and there's like an actual bear. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I enjoy seeing Lewis's humor pop through here and there because he certainly has a sense of humor.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
How about you?
Yeah, anything with the bears and Merlin. I loved all those scenes too. Those are pretty much my favorite. Honestly, I was pretty much bored by like the first 2/3, the first 3/4.
It took a while to get going. It took a while. Mm-hmm.
It really did. I didn't enjoy this dystopia elements at all. I've read a lot of dystopias in my life, and I know that this came before a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But I was pretty bored. So
yeah, it takes a while to get going for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I had a hard time just wanting to pick it up because it was so slow in the beginning.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like reading the book at the beginning. I was just like, I just want to read something else. But about halfway through, I was like, okay, things are starting to happen.
Yeah.
Christina says, who's going to be the new Pendragon after Ransom? They said one had to be chosen, but they didn't do it, did they? Did they choose someone? Do you remember that? I don't know. I don't know if we were told.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Because Ransom gets swept away. He leaves Earth and he goes to Venus where he belongs.
Yeah.
So yeah, is he still the Pendragon when he leaves?
I don't think he had any intention of coming back.
Mm-hmm. I think we are to assume that he's just gone to Venus.
Yeah.
For the rest of his life.
Yeah.
That's like his heaven now.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I don't know, Christina.
That's a good question.
That's a good
I don't
question.
think we were given one.
Oh yeah, the homeless guy who was Merlin, or he was the tramp. They called him. They called him the tramp, right?
Yes.
And they thought he was Merlin. That was funny too.
He can't talk. And then as soon as they leave him and Mark alone, he's like spouting off all this sorts of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that was funny. It's so it is pre-dystopian. Yes. Definitely lots of humor, as usual, in C.S. Lewis's books.
Yeah.
So what do you think that he wants us to take away from the book, ultimately? Or what do you guys take away from it, thematically?
Be a good person.
That's the moral of every story, right?
Yeah.
I think like he talks about this in Mere Christianity too, and he'll often include his like nonfiction sort of theses in his fiction. But the small choices that we make are really important in the long run. I think that's like a big theme in this one. Like being charitable to one another was what that came up. The husband Dimble to, I'm sorry, I just can't remember their names, especially on audiobook.
Cecil?
But to Mark.
Cecil was the...
Cecil, okay, yeah. To Cecil, to Mark, he was like, I was sort of uncharitable to him, and now they don't have a relationship built on trust and friendship to be able to speak truth and trust each other. So like that ended up being a turning point for their relationship. And like being conscious of the sacrifices that we're making for each other. If Mark had been conscious of the sacrifices that his wife was making for him when she married him, then their relationship would have been better, from the beginning. And so stuff like that, the small choices end up being important. And nobody's obviously perfect. We're all going to make choices that are going to make things harder for other people, but recognizing and trying to fix those things make a big difference.
Yeah, we didn't really talk much about Jane and Mark as like a married couple, but he definitely had a lot to say about marriage and
kindness of the husband to the wife. Yeah,
he had a lot to say about marriage, and whether or not you agree with everything he has to say about marriage, I do think their kind of journey as a couple and how they kind of start in very opposite places, and the things that they go through to kind of come back to the same place was, I thought crafted really well, in my opinion. Crafted really well. They start in very opposite places.
Yeah, and all the events could have led to them not coming together in the end.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
And I think another just main theme that we know also from Abolition of Man is not allowing man to run away with their desire for power, and that being really the downfall of society in general is when man grasps for power that they shouldn't have, that belongs to God or a higher power, and that man tries to control those powers.
And not throwing away your morality in order to pursue what you think is the higher good, like the scientific I forget what it's called, the scientific materialism. In their case, they thought the progress of man was the most important thing. The progress of the human race was their highest value, and so they were willing to cut down all the forests, throw people out of their homes, just do like a whole bunch of things to make sure that man of the future was in the best possible place, that the highest evolution of man would be possible. So sacrifice all the lower forms of man so that the highest form would take place. And that, in divorcing man from any sense of moral value, it didn't get them to actually any moral high ground, even though they thought that it did.
It was they were just distorting the world they lived in rather than elevating as a species. They were like hurting themselves, right? Christina says pride.
Yes, pride.
For sure. Yeah, and their desire to conquer death, right? That was a big one too, and be immortal. With that, you want to be immortal.
Yes.
Man's desire to control death.
That's probably a better way to put it. The immortality of the human race.
And our fear of that as a people, just being afraid of death and what comes next. That was more of a theme, I feel like, of Out of the Silent Planet. It was like accepting death and accepting like the circle of life, if you will. All mind, no heart. Yeah, that's a good summary too, Summer. All right. Well, I would love to know. Thank you guys. These are really great thoughts. Really great thoughts. What is your final rating? Would you recommend the series to another person who has not read it? Would you recommend this book? Would you skip this book? Or I would love to know your thoughts.
I gave it a 3-star rating. I would not skip it because I'm a completionist. So have to finish the trilogy. And I would recommend it, but it would have to be a very specific type of person that I would recommend it to. I don't think I would recommend it to just anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I think everyone can get something out of it, I understand that there's people that would pick it up and be like, what did you just give me?
Nope.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I gave it 3. I gave it 3 as well. This was my least favorite in the series so far. Maybe someday if I reread it, I would change my mind. But upon this first reading, and I do feel like I rushed through the ending a bit, just because I didn't pace myself well, so I kind of rushed through the ending. So, yeah, I don't know if I gave it a fair shot to the end, but overall, this was my least favorite one. What about you, Christy?
I definitely would recommend the series, especially to people who enjoy C.S. Lewis as a whole. I think, and people who enjoy sci-fi, especially sci-fi that's very kind of heady. I think people who kind of like playful kind of stuff, I would say definitely go for book 1. There's so much playful, sci-fi kind of creatures and stuff in book 1. But I don't know if I would say continue on with the series. I would say definitely it depends on what you're looking for. It would depend on what they want, whether I say continue on. Because book 2 was my favorite, but I can see that it's not everybody's. So, yes, exactly, Christina. It's not for everyone. I like the trilogy. It just depends. It depends. Kind of like what Amanda was saying, too. Yeah.
I would say I wouldn't recommend this as a starting place for C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
I don't think it's his best. I don't think overall it's his most representative of what he can do. I think it's really interesting if you already like C.S. Lewis, but I don't think it's like the picture of like his perfect work. But it was still so interesting to read the series as a whole, and I did really enjoy the series overall. It's a little bit more niche. I agree. It's a little bit more of a niche read.
Yes, it is more niche. My mom is loving them, by the way.
Oh, good.
She's going a little more slowly. But
yeah.
I'm glad that she's still reading. Which one is she on?
She's on Paralandra. She said it's getting a little bit tense for her bedtime reading because the devil is scary.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a bedtime book.
Yeah.
Although C.S. Lewis would say it's a fairy tale now.
Yeah. It's one of the scarier kind of grim style fairy tales.
Yeah.
I probably gave this particular book like a 65, which seems like a really harsh rating because I loved the ending, but 3/4 of the way through I was still like, what is this? So but I did love the ending. And certain scenes I just really loved. But
Oh, cool, Carrie. Your dad's rereading them. Nice.
Oh yeah, if you can if this series convinces someone to read The Abolition of Man, then I say it is 100% worth it. Because that book is amazing. That's a fantastic book.
That is awesome. Oh, good, Summer. I'm glad you have the same thoughts.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like all of us sort of agree on the trilogy as a whole.
Yeah.
Even though we have slightly different ideas on the specific books.
Yeah. I still really enjoyed the whole thing. As a just taking them all as a picture together. I think they were really neat. They were cool.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting read.
I think you called them niche. I think that was you, Victoria. And I think that was a good word for it. Niche.
Well, thank you guys so much for participating and for sticking through the read along. You made it to the 3rd book. Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone who's been chatting with us in our lives and to Amanda and Christy and Summer who were in our live streams. And I am just so happy. I feel like this was a great series to talk through. I don't know if I would have gotten as much out of it on my own. So thank you so much, everybody, for doing this with me. You all had such amazing insights, and I've just really enjoyed the last couple months, and I'm sad it's over. Oh, my heart is broken. It's ending. But I
thank you, Victoria, for organizing this, for the great questions, for the Discord. Thank you for making this happen. I'm not sure I would have finished the trilogy without you. Thank you.
Yeah,
I've been sitting on book 2 for forever. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you guys got something out of it too. And thank you for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to Amanda and Christy if you are not already. And if you are watching this on replay, definitely leave me a comment down below and let us know what your thoughts were. We would love to hear some more conversation. Or also, we still have the Discord. The Discord will remain up. I'll leave the section for this trilogy up for a little bit longer too, so that anybody who is watching this later can also chat with us there as well. Oh, thanks, Summer, and thanks, Christina. Thanks, and Carrie, for all of your insights, and everybody else who was here today, Kaylee and David, and I'm sorry if I forgot someone. Thank you, guys. All right, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.